Hello everyone, and welcome to another video where today I was just having a nice walk through the woods when I noticed a plant that I hadn't really seen before. I'm sure it's been here for a while, but I didn't notice it until now. And you'll notice it has very distinctive flowers. So I looked it up, and it turns out it's something called an American groundnut, also known as a potato bean. Now, those sound like promising names for a wild edible, but I had to do further research because, of course, you have to be 100% sure, and oftentimes a lot of plants that are toxic have edible-sounding names like that. But after a little more research, I found out that this is, in fact, an edible plant. This isn't really going to be a wild edibles episode, but finding this made me realize something about wild edibles in general, and that's the fact that, unfortunately, a lot of the really good wild edibles for both foraging and survival get overlooked simply because most people don't know about them. As far as wild edibles go, this is a really good one. The name potato bean is extremely literal. It has edible, potato-like tubers and edible beans. Most wild edibles tend to either be leafy greens, other vegetables, or fruits. It's rare to find something with this high of a caloric density. But unfortunately, this stuff just gets overshadowed by, the usual stuff like dandelions, nettles, and cattails. And don't get me wrong, those are all well, good, and plentiful, but if that's all the wild edibles you know, and that's all that gets constantly passed around, there's really no new information going about, and to be honest, those wild edibles aren't going to really fit the bill all on their own. Now, you could make the argument that because the potato bean, which is this, looks very much like poison ivy, which I'm holding, it's not that great as a wild edible for beginners because they might mistake the two. But honestly, you're way safer going for the potato bean than you are going with cattails because, well, the edible parts are the beans and the tubers, of which poison ivy has neither. And while yes, cattails have their distinctive seed heads, not all the plants do, and, well, there are some poisonous lookalikes like these iris that if you weren't careful, you didn't know what you were doing, you might think that these and that are the same plant. And if you did make that mistake, well, unfortunately, these irises are certainly poisonous enough to kill a person. The point is that, unfortunately, a lot of the more commonly known wild edibles tend to really steal the spotlight away from some of the actual really good ones that you might come across. And unfortunately, for the survival aspect of things, it's really not a merit-based list in terms of the common wild edibles everyone talks about. I mean, for example, stinging nettle, if you don't have gloves and a way to boil water, you really can't eat it. And honestly, it's just kind of unfortunate that it's such a short list that people tend to focus on. Because, I mean, that has real-world consequences. For a lot of the ones that people focus on, they tend to be invasive, so no issue there. But with stuff like ramps, I don't even want to eat that because it's so endangered by human foraging. But anyway, I suppose I've ranted long enough. Stay tuned for a Wild Edibles episode on this plant that goes into full detail, maybe even two, one for the tubers, one for the beans. I hope to find more wild edibles like this that are relatively unknown. This is still known to foragers, but it's nowhere near as commonly known as it should be. Hope to find more like it. Anyway, hope you guys learned something and enjoyed. See ya.